I haven't done this in quite a while, but I couldn't help myself. This True Blood Season 1 review was so reminiscent of the time that Brandon and Josiah insisted I watch Peacemaker. So I had all these notes, and I couldn't help myself but to throw them all up in the air in frustration and basic general contempt for the fact that there wasn't one human character I could get behind in that show. Now, obviously, I did like Eagly because the eagle was cool. But here in True Blood, there was a human I could get behind. That being the grandmother of a character named Suki. Well, and also Jason, since they're brother and sister. After the open rolls, I will talk about whether you should watch or not watch, which I struggle to even say without laughing, True Blood Season 1. Like I said before the open roll, the show True Blood to me was so reminiscent of the time Brandon and Josiah recommended I watch Peacemaker because it was something that somebody else said was good, and thus is what led to me watching it. However, in this case, the person, the someone, was Mrs. Super Oz remembered enjoying True Blood. And so, as a gift, I bought her the complete series. It seemed like, hey, you like it, let's have it, and so let's try it out. However, big problem comes in when you pop it on, and it seems like everyone is unpleasant, not good, and oh, take that back. The grandmother seems both pleasant and good, orderly, nice, all that. But she doesn't last very long in the show. I think she's gone by episode 4 or 5. And where we do get a pseudo replacement for the grandmother. I mean, a new character introduced, being a girlfriend named Amy for Jason. So I mean, she's new to the dynamic, but she's not a true replacement in the fact that the grandmother was the guiding force, the one bright spot for the characters. Because like Suki seems like one of the most idiotic characters I've ever met. In the first 3, maybe 4 episodes, she's hearing everybody's thoughts except for a vampire named Bill, and she loves that she can't hear his thoughts because it's so bad. And don't get me wrong, I understand that not being able to turn off other people's thoughts would be a negative. I'm not saying that I don't understand that perspective. I 100% am on board with the idea that hearing people's innermost, oftentimes negative thoughts has to be a big pain. And so I can understand her being unhappy about that. But just the world in general of this show is so. It's challenging to be okay with because, like, we open on a convenience store, or people driving to a convenience store, and in the convenience store is a news story about basically vampire rights, if you will. And there's a drink called True Blood, which is supposed to, I don't know, make it okay for them to be out in the wild, if you will, and just be doing what they do. But it is just so jarring. Like, so not only are all the humans complete imbeciles, but all the vampires are like super abrasive. And now, granted, Bill being the exception to the abrasive vampire stigma that all the rest of them have, that everybody but the Bill character seems to be basically a a big stereotype of just the bully. But even though he, Bill, stands out as not being a bully, and his connection to the grandmother was rather nice. She was kind to the vampires, whereas most aren't, and they could relate to like the that Civil War era, which I thought was interesting, I guess, until she, was no longer around. But yeah, not any of the humans are good. The cops seem like they're dumber than a box of rocks. They don't really seem to serve much of a purpose. So Suki, her best friend Tara, a bunch of other chicks too. My goodness, it seems like it's a rotating cast of fill in the blank girlfriend for the brother Jason. But they all work at a bar and grill that is run by a dude who wears for a shapeshifter, where he's like, oh, I can inhabit the such and such of this, that, and the other. But his name's Sam. He runs the bar and grill, and like, it's not quite a Hooters, but like everybody that works for him is wild in some sort of way. Even the cook in the back, Lafayette, he is he's a trip. Not only does he sell vampire blood as a drug, which is an ironic twist in the whole thing, where so vampires basically are being treated as though they're natural and sort of the, I'm not gonna say good guys, but they're more with it, if you will. Because like, can you blame an animal, a tiger, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, can you blame an animal for attacking for food, especially for food, right? Well, not particularly, because it's within their nature. And so that's what I mean by the vampires are treated in a different form or fashion. And the humans, in contrast, Lafayette, Amy, the new girlfriend of Jason himself, and I'm sure a host of others throughout the world building, are treated and presented as more than more inhumane than the non-humans, because they not just kidnap vampires, take and drink their blood, but I mean literally drink like it was a beverage or like an alcohol shot. But like I said, they kidnap them. And their connection to everything while on the blood is just over the top as far as visuals go. And also, it seems like, and now maybe I'm impolite by saying this, but I'm going to try and say it as gently as possible. I feel like the show is primarily padded with intimate scenes anytime the writers are like, I'm running out of ideas. What should I put? Dialogue is hard, plot is challenging. Let's just put them in an undressed situation, if you will, and that is such a ridiculous way to present a story, is what I'm trying to say. And the lack of cohesion is so frustrating. Thank you for being here at Mr. Super Oz. This video is going out, and this channel only exists because I, Oz, founded Gamble Comics, which first release was Everlasting Survivors, a 68-page graphic novel called All Day Long, available now. Follow the link in the description
That will take you to gamblecomics.com. While there, you can get hats, shirts, posters, much, much more, but most importantly, the story itself.
If not for the vampire I was just speaking of that got kidnapped, that being, his name's Eddie, but he's also Milton from Office Space and the voice of Bill Dauterive in King of the Hill. If not for him and the Doctor from Star Trek Enterprise, if not for a guy that I know from Once Upon a Time and a bunch of other things, if not for the cast of this show, Anna Paquin almost specifically because of her time as Rogue in the Fox made X-Men movies, I don't know if I could have made it through season 1 of True Blood, because while so much of the story does feel lacking to me, and like I said, a lot of things seem done strictly because it's like, this is going to require me to do work, like thinking and putting in time and effort. Let me just ease my way into the padding out the length of the show by taking everybody's clothes off, because that is a crutch that the show leans on so heavily. And I just don't understand what the motivating factor is, because most of, if not all, now I'll grant maybe, perhaps, one of the lacking of clothing scenes was relevant for moving the story forward, and that being when Suki gives her all to Bill, because it is relevant to the primary character and the primary non-human who is generally done well. And so with one intimate scene, I can understand why they did it, but all of the myriad of additional time that they went all the way, I just don't understand what the purpose, other than just saying, oh, I can get by with it because it's on HBO, I guess, and maybe in the year that it came out, what was it, 2008, I think, something like that. I don't understand what was being done, what was making it so that choice. It throws me off. So, like I said, the hierarchy of the vampire world, this new illumination that's being brought on to humankind, is very weird and ritualistic. Like, they have sheriffs and districts, and I don't know, but it's like, do you even have elections? Like, it's not like people are out here figuring out. I don't. It's just it, and the lack of continuity. Like, okay, so I can take your blood and it doesn't change you, but at some point, I've never quite understood the, like, if you get bit and you turn into a vampire with it, that's fine. You know, Spider-Man doing everything a Spider-Man can. All right, I'm with it. But the whole, oh, I'm taking some, but then you're, if I don't take all of it, then you're not a vampire. But if I take all of it, wouldn't you just be straight dead? And so, what about the amount is what decides the change and the not change? And I think that's always been a bit of an issue for vampire lore, in my opinion. I will say this, as far as lore goes and vampire stereotypes or traditions, I enjoyed the concept of can't see your reflection, cross being a big deal, and holy water, all that stuff was myth that they orchestrated themselves as a way to show that they weren't vampires when they weren't public. Because if you were accused of being a vampire and you have a reflection, it's like, oh, see, I can't be a vampire. You can see me in the mirror, or you're the cross you're holding doesn't make me cower because I'm not a vampire. See, don't kill me, type thing. And so I was like, oh, that's a fine slash interesting approach. But again, I feel like the show lacks depth when it comes to actual planning and thorough thoughts. Because outside of the vampire's blood illuminating or opening humans' eyes and being treated as a drug, and like I said, the idea that vampires are both bullies, but also kind of not bullies because they're the natural ones. They're the closer to the animal kingdom understood. And then, so there was a little bit of planning, but there was so much just throwing stuff up against the wall. Maybe after season one, they figured out what they wanted because toward the end of season one, Tara, Sookie's best friend, her mom has an exorcism, and so they are introducing additional lore other than just vampires into the show. Although I think that even from the beginning, because I suspect Sam is something other than human, there probably has been more than just vampires the whole time. But my thing is, when it comes down to the concept of whether or not I believe you should watch or not watch True Blood, it's easy. Check this out. During the first 6 episodes, I started watching the show before the Watch Don't Watch concept started on the channel. This was back before I did that route, whether it be play, don't play, watch, don't watch, whatever. And so I was rating each episode in the traditional way. So episode 1 got a 1 out of 5 stars. Episode 2 got a 2 out of 5 because it was fairly passable, although you can always look at it like, I think you should pass on watching the show. Episode 3 got a 1 out of 5. Episode 4 got a 1 out of 5. And episode 5 got a 0 out of 5. Episode 6 it was a fine 3 out of 5, but after the halfway point, I stopped even grading each episode, realizing that I wasn't even going to go that route. I felt like it was actually too much to give the show itself the credentials, the credit, the amount of brain power to analyze each episode and go with an actual star rating. That's why I went with the watch or don't watch mentality just overall on the show, this show that I'm recording. And so I don't think that True Blood is worth watching. It's only because of Mrs. Super Oz wanting to go back in time and see how things hold up, spoiler, not very well, that I'm going to drop these, I'm going to call them gifts for her, because the month of May is her birthday. It makes sense to drop season 2 in October, vampires and potentially other creature-based things in the show, and then season 3 will be released in December for Christmas, because Merry Christmas, I continue to watch the show that I don't like. But yeah, I don't recommend anybody watching True Blood season 1 because it's a mess. It's not well, and it's not even that I have a beef with the supernatural. I really enjoyed the American version of Being Human because it wasn't a romp without clothes. It was an intelligent, well thought out trip through the world of being the other. And while True Blood seems to put the other on a pedestal, Being Human did it, in my opinion, much better, and so have so many other things. So I say this is a don't watch for True Blood season 1.